From the New York Times, it's The Headlines. I'm Tracy Mumford. Today's Friday, August 29th. Here's what we're covering. Twice this week, the Trump administration has announced it's firing high-ranking government officials. And twice this week, those officials have said, "I will not go." First, it was Lisa Cook, a governor at the Federal Reserve, who the administration has accused of mortgage fraud. Her firing came as President Trump has been trying to gain control of the Fed board.
What I will say is that he has the cause that he needs to fire this individual, and so we'll continue to fight this battle.
Then it was Susan Menares, the CDC director, who was dismissed after clashing with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over vaccine policy.
This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission.
The White House has defended its firings, even as Cook has pushed back by suing Trump, calling her dismissal, quote, unprecedented and illegal.
President Trump has asserted widespread and maximalist powers over the federal government, believing that really no part of it should be independent from him or beyond his reach.
Luke Broadwater is a reporter in the Times Washington bureau. He says critics of the administration's recent moves are warning that it's politicizing financial and public health roles that have traditionally been insulated from that. But to the White House and to conservative legal analysts, Trump has the right to put exactly who he wants in charge.
Conservatives for many years have believed the federal government had swung too far to the left and that the bureaucrats were making decisions that were out of step with what the majority of the American people wanted. And that President Trump's mandate is to essentially get in there, clean house, and put more right-leaning people in those positions. So we have a president who is asserting powers no recent president would have done, but he does believe he has a backing and he has the mandate from the voters to do just that.
Now, 3 other quick updates on the Trump administration. The president has moved to strip more federal workers of their union protections, signing an executive order that affects employees at about a half dozen agencies from NASA to the National Weather Service. It follows an order earlier this year where he instructed a whole list of other agencies to end their collective bargaining agreements with unions. At the VA, for example, more than 400,000 workers lost their union protections. Trump has said the move is about national security. Unions say it's retaliation for the flurry of lawsuits they've filed to try and block mass firings and other efforts to dismantle wide swaths of the federal government. Also, the Times has obtained internal government documents showing that the White House is actively making plans for an immigration crackdown in Chicago and has put in a request with the Defense Department to use a naval base outside the city as a staging area. The preliminary plans suggest it could involve 200 Homeland Security officials and could start as soon as next month. It comes as Trump has also floated sending National Guard troops into Chicago, which he's described as a crime-ridden mess.
It's illegal, unconstitutional. Frankly, it's un-American to send troops into American cities when there's no emergency, there's no insurrection.
The governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, has condemned Trump's threats. And yesterday, he and 18 other Democratic governors signed an open letter calling the potential troop deployments a, quote, alarming abuse of power. And as of midnight, a trade loophole that had allowed billions of small packages to easily enter the U.S. has now been completely closed. Called the de minimis exemption, the rule had let packages worth less than $800 be shipped into the country without facing tariffs or requiring customs paperwork. The administration has said that the tighter controls will help stop fentanyl from being smuggled into the U.S. and will raise revenue for the government. But the changing requirements have disrupted shipping worldwide. Many foreign post offices have recently suspended shipments to the U.S. altogether while they wait for clarity. Notably, the administration had already closed the exemption for products from China earlier this year, so we've had a preview of how this might go. The government says it's been able to collect an extra roughly $500 million so far on those Chinese shipments. Meanwhile, companies like Shein and Temu have seen purchases drop significantly, and the Americans who are still buying are paying more. In Texas,
84 ayes, 46 nays, House Bill 7 passed to engross motion.
Republican lawmakers have pushed forward with an expansive new effort to limit a key way that women get abortions: mail-order pills. The state has a near-total ban on the procedure, but many Texans seeking abortions have relied on out-of-state providers to prescribe and ship them the medication. If the new measure is signed into law, as expected, it would allow nearly anyone to sue doctors, distributors, or manufacturers who send or even intend to send abortion medication to Texans. Successful lawsuits would come with a cash award. Supporters of the effort say they hope it will kick off a flood of lawsuits against everyone from medical providers to shipping companies like FedEx and UPS. Opponents of the measures say they're worried about exactly the same thing, and that it could make it even harder for people to access abortions. Texas's legislation could go on to spark a clash with other states which have laws shielding abortion providers from liability, and that might ultimately wind up in front of the Supreme Court. And finally, in 1991, a time capsule was buried on the grounds of a hospital in London. It was a big to-do. Princess Diana was there, and a bunch of items that had been specially chosen to capture that moment in history went into a lead-lined box to be preserved for the far, far, far away future. That was the plan, anyway, until this summer when they had to dig it up for a construction project, a mere 34 years later. It had some real early 90s gems in there: a solar-powered calculator, a pocket television, and
I can pick up the bass, yeah. Ooh, there's no time to wait.
a CD of Kylie Minogue's Rhythm of Love. The project's very short lifespan underscores how time capsules are frequently kind of a bust. For one thing, people sometimes forget about them or they vanish altogether. There was one placed at the same London hospital in 1872, and they do not know where it went. Or worse, they're often just not that interesting. The Long Beach Post covered a time capsule in Southern California that was unearthed recently after 50 years, and the reporter declared it to be filled with a lot of things I have in my garage. He's not alone. A history professor who's an expert on this kind of project told The Times that the most common reaction to time capsule openings is disappointment. Those are the headlines, but stick around. We've got the Friday news quiz for you after the credits. This show is made by Will Jarvis, Jessica Metzger, Jan Stewart, and me, Tracy Mumford. Original theme by Dan Powell. Special thanks to Isabella Anderson, Larissa Anderson, John Chase, Lillian Cunningham, Jake Lucas, Zoe Murphy, Katie O'Brien, and Paula Schumann. Now, time for the quiz. Every week, we ask you a few questions about stories the Times has covered. Can you answer them all? First up.
Between us, I think we're going to change the name. You want to know the truth? I think we're going to have some information on that maybe soon.
This week at the White House, President Trump said he's considering renaming the Department of Defense. He said it should go back to the name that it dropped in the 1940s.
We had an unbelievable history of victory when it was Department of... We changed it to Department of Defense. So that's a little...
Your question, what does he want to change it back to? The answer?
I think he liked Department of War better, but we'll make that decision, right?
Trump says he wants to change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. It actually had that name when it was first established by George Washington in 1789. It was only renamed after World War II. Explaining his thinking, Trump said, quote, "I don't want to be defense only. We want defense, but we want offense too." Okay, next question. This one's also about a rebranding of sorts, just for a very different kind of American institution. Recently, a classic brand tried to do a new minimalist revamp of its logo, and it did not go over well.
They tossed away their authenticity.
And now their new logo is basically just
so tacky.
The change sparked a wave of backlash from the right, and this week, even President Trump called it a mistake, at which point the brand announced, never mind. So your question, what chain was it? The answer?
Yo, we did it. We bullied Cracker Barrel enough to change their new logo back to the old one.
Cracker Barrel. the restaurant chain known for its kitschy gift shops and country fried steak. Its ultra-minimalist new logo had dropped both the barrel and the image of an old man in overalls leaning up against it. Right-wing critics said it was proof that the chain was abandoning its roots. There have been years of simmering conservative frustration with Cracker Barrel, in part because it's adopted more inclusive policies and embraced pride celebrations. So, now the barrel and the old man are back. If you're wondering whether he has a name, apparently he's just called Old Timer. And last question. This year marks the 60th anniversary of a beloved movie musical that has been inspiring Americans for decades to make a pilgrimage to Europe to see where it was filmed. My colleague Jim Tankersley has been reporting on the anniversary and the obsession. And it helps that his own 4-year-old daughter is a huge fan.
I like the kids and the music and the dancing.
We had Nora describe the movie. Can you guess what it is?
It's about a dad that's called a captain, and there's a woman that learns to sing with the children.
The answer?
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
The Sound of Music.
With songs they have sung for 1,000 years.
The musical, which premiered in 1965, is, of course, based oh so loosely on the true story of the Von Trapp family who fled Austria to escape Hitler. It brings in millions of dollars in tourism to Austria every year, including some big anniversary events this year. Ironically, though, Austrians themselves are not super into it. The musical was just never big there. Fun fact, Christopher Plummer, who starred as Captain Von Trapp, was also not that into it. He thought it was too sentimental, and at one point called it the sound of mucus. All right, that's it for the news quiz. If you want to tell us how you did or what you think about the quiz, you can always email us at theheadlines@nytimes.com. I'm Tracy Mumford. The Headlines will be back on Tuesday after Labor Day.
The kids' names are Liesel, Friedrich, Kurt, Brigitte, Marta.